don't work in sales. I've never sold anything in my life. I provide enthusiastic education. It's only enthusiastic because I believe in the product so much, and it's played out. Like, get inspired, ask questions, and don't be afraid to say, hey, can you teach me about what you're doing? I get involved in things I have no idea about, and all of a sudden in a couple of years I'm an expert, just because I've been invited to play with people that are a lot smarter and better connected currently than me, and then we all have more fun together doing these projects.
I have been living in Austin, Texas for almost 30 years, and I have seen so many things change, and I have met so many great people. One of the people that I recently met is Matt Holm. He's an amazing person. He's a real estate agent, educator, and connector. My belief is this: do not sell. He just does that. He connects with people and educates them to make a better decision. If they want to relocate to Austin, he will tell them why or why not. Matt is not only a realtor, but he's an educator and connector. We want to talk about Austin real estate. Why or why not you should move to Austin. We're going to get to his story and ask him why he does what he does. Matt, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming here, my friend. I know it's Christmas coming and busy after Thanksgiving, and that you made time to come here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
And, you know, as I always tell everybody, this show is all about helping other people to learn and grow by people like you to tell them the stories of their life and business. And I think that's a big thing we all can do to help others.
Sure.
But thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know you're big in the real estate and the Tesla Club, but I am positive that you got a story, a comeback story, or some stories that you started, how you started it, your journey in the real estate and the Tesla Club, and just enlighten us.
I mean, I've got a few. It depends on how far back you want to go, right? I mean, life's all about up and downs, and it's how you come back from the downs, right? And so after college, me and my cousin, who's actually visiting at Christmas time, we bought a Volkswagen bus in London and traveled around for a year in Europe.
Wow.
I met my wife about halfway through the trip and spent my second year chasing her in Spain, and dragged her back to California for about 11 years. And then I was actually a photographer and a teacher. I was working 7 days a week. I made most of my money doing the photography, and I had a hit and run bicycling accident actually in 2007. The car fared fine. I flew over the car and landed about 30 feet away. Ooh. Had a helmet on, but broke my neck in 3 places. And it was a hit and run. And I was laid out for about 6 months and had a bunch of nerve damage and all kinds of horrible stuff that happened. And I couldn't hold a camera anymore. And we'd been involved in real estate projects. We had to let those go. We had no source of income coming in except for some small disability from the teaching job. And I said, honey, what can I do that would be a transition that I like doing? And real estate kept coming up. And we had visited Austin in 2006, the year beforehand, and had actually bought a house here as just a rental, just to test the market. And so literally it's the only thing besides our paid off cars that we had left. Had a couple months of mortgage we could make and just threw stuff in a U-Haul and came out to Austin. I literally got my real estate license from the hotel or from the hospital bed. And I got here in July of 2008, and I sold 5 homes my first month. And that was, I don't know if you remember 2008, it was not a great year for real estate. It was arguably worse than it is right now, and it's a pretty slow market now. And I thought, well, that's a weird fluke. I'd kind of found a niche. I started as a realtor marketing some new construction neighborhoods, and was very successful. Doing volume and just bringing a lot of buyers in. Basically, it was the buying window of our lifetime, really, between 2008, 2010, 11, till the market came back. I just described Austin as being on sale. And so I put together and made quite a bit of money for quite a few people. And I've been doing it now, what is that now, 16, 17 years in Austin. And my price point has gotten significantly larger, but I still do quite a bit of volume. And so that was an interesting kind of propelling factor that brought us here. went from a low to, even better than we were doing beforehand. And so branched out into, still do a lot of residential, almost all referrals from past clients. I've closed about $1.5 billion in real estate, 1,700 transactions personally. I've got a team. We've had a slow couple of years, but I'm looking at the deals I'm getting right now, and buyers are in great shape. Right specifically now. Sellers that have to sell are selling and making deals. And I'm telling my sellers, 25 is going to be a better recovery year, definitely 26. So really, I give the advice that I know needs to happen for my clients based on the long-term investment that they're looking for. And you buy low, you sell high, right? And right now you're not going to sell high. And right now you can buy low. When the market comes back, I would say 26, 27 will probably be an ideal year for folks to get back into the selling side. I think acquisition happening right now is the smartest thing you can do. And so, you just look at the metrics in Austin. We have so many people still moving here, despite you hear this news that people are leaving Austin. Well, they're moving to Cedar Park or Round Rock or the suburbs.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And they count that as moving out of Austin, but it's not a mass migration out. It's moving to the burbs where they can get an affordable house. And so we're actually getting 60,000 net positive and have down from about a peak of 80,000 in 22.
Moving in?
Each year, 22, 23, 24. Wow. So we still have a net positive migration, mostly tech jobs. These are folks that can find rentals. The rental market really got overbuilt during the upswing. And so there's lots of rental options, and they're all kind of waiting for the magic time to get back in when rates become, quote, affordable. I think actually 3 things people have been waiting on. 1, to get through the crazy election. We're through that. Okay. All done there. Number 2,
the new administration.
Well, new administration, the world didn't fall apart. Whatever side you were on, everyone thought if the other side won, exactly, the world was going to blow up. Guess what? We're still here. Okay, we're moving on now, right? And then you've got interest rates, which haven't come down much yet. So we're waiting on that. And then traditionally, November, December are the slowest years for buyers, except for really the savvy ones. We've bought all our investment properties pretty much always through October through December, because every year that's the best time. They've been on the market all year. They can't seem to get traction, especially this year. And so you're just putting in silly offers and getting them accepted this time of year, which I love doing. And then I love being on the flip side when we're selling and selling at the right time and making the money on the upside. So it's targeting where the opportunity is in the market and really looking at that and educating folks to the options. And there's great options out there.
Real estate can be very tricky. As you said, a lot of people, they lost money and they gain money. Some they lost because they weren't that educated. They didn't know when to buy, when to sell. Yeah. And with all these people, you said close to 60,000 people moving each year. That's the big number. And especially the tech side, what part of the town usually these people looking at because they're techies all over the Austin, or you're like focusing in different areas? Yeah,
so I live in Westlake, moved there 12 years ago from our house that we had bought as a rental. And I would say most of your executives, Elon, I think it's public knowledge, Elon lives there. I can go down a roster of interesting folks that live in Westlake. If you've got kids, it's very close to downtown. You can get a large house, no crime. It's very safe. And you're 6-7 minutes if you're in the closer section into downtown. So a lot of the executives, C-suite, live in Westlake. Folks that maybe don't have kids and a family are living downtown or 78704. But really the big growth side, if you're looking at kind of exponential growth where you can kind of find a pop, follow Elon Musk. And I run the Tesla Owners Club, so I'm a bit of a fan.
We're going to talk about that
but I like metrics a lot too. And so you look at the economic impact that he's going to have. People have no idea what's coming. The impact for him really is going to be greater than the Gates effect in Seattle. Gates combined really with Bezos. He's moving all of his companies here, not just the Gigafactory. They just got permits pulled to build another 5 million square feet on top of the 11 million at the Gigafactory. You've got a hard corner in Bastrop that people didn't realize was going to be Twitter's location. I knew about that about 6 months ago.
Are you serious? That's what I thought.
May have tied up and made people a couple of bucks since the announcement came out. But there's a hard corner there where literally every other company that he's got,
he's moving the whole X here.
And then Neuralink is kind of going to be in between the two of them. So the east side currently, if you look directly next to Gigafactory, the pricing on land is 10x'd already in the last 4 years for the land that's immediately around Tesla. So it's pretty robust. He paid $34,000 an acre. Now it's trading at $320 to $420 an acre, depending on if it's partially in floodplain or not. That opportunity is also in Bastrop right now because people have not seen that same growth of that kind of square footage. But you've got not just industrial, you're not just manufacturing, you've got X, right? Twitter. That's 1,000 to 1,500 tech jobs that'll be headquartered there.
They all need housing.
And you've got Boring Company there. You've got Starlink and SpaceX. And so you've got this two pockets, which makes sense for him to consolidate to a couple locations within 15 minutes of each other. Because right now he's interspersed between Brownsville is going to be the launch area, but he's got Palo Alto, you've got LA, Hawthorne, and then Texas. And so I think he's politics have sort of pushed him out of California. He's a little tired of the over-regulation, high taxation, and not really getting a benefit for it. And really, the people that he brought here to Tesla initially, the way they chose Austin is he put an internal poll out there that I heard about and just said, open-ended question, if I could move headquarters somewhere, where would you move? And resoundingly, like 75% just pulled Austin out of their hat. And this was 5 years ago.
Wow.
So based on that poll, based on the fact that Tesla's, is looking for a pro business state, he moved here and was incredibly successful in building the Gigafactory. I mean, that Gigafactory, they built 11 million square feet in 15 months. That is astounding.
15 months?
15 months. I can't get a
From
custom
start to finish?
I can't get a custom house built in Westlake in 15 months.
From start to finish?
From start to finish. They got permission to do their own self-stamping. They have some of the smartest engineers on the planet. So instead of waiting around for the city or county to come out, they could stamp and go. And they were able to move at light speed. They built Shanghai Gigafactory in 14 months. So 1 month less, but it's only 5 million square feet. So they built twice that amount in 15 months in Austin, Texas. You would have been still in permitting in California to build anything of that size if you could find the land, and you're certainly not going to find it for $34,000 an acre. So all of these compelling reasons are why he's here. And I really feel strongly that Tesla, in a decade, you won't even really correlate them with cars like you do Toyota or Honda. I think with the robotics that are coming out, the Optimus, by 26, according to Elon's optimistic estimates, by some other folks I know, maybe 27. I think you're going to get the household robot that goes into your house. It's going to be a first generation. It may only be able to water your plants and vacuum and do a few things, but he's shooting for a price eventually of $20,000 a robot. The initial rollout, he's promising a $40,000. Well, for the price of a Honda Accord, you can save on maid service, maybe lawn service, maybe your pool guy, and have a cool robot at home. How many people are going to just buy that first one just to have a robot living in their house, just think it's cool? Some people are creeped out by it. I think it's pretty badass. Like, I'm
commercials
excited.
Too, a lot of commercial cleaning.
The applications are endless.
Yeah.
I mean, humanoid robots, the applications are astounding. They've already got them in the Fremont factory. And I'm hearing they're rolling out now in the Gigafactory here in Austin. So there's a lot of stuff. I just did a tour of the factory about 4 weeks ago, whenever Formula One was, and no robots that I saw, but a lot of robotics, big robots, just manipulating and pulling cars around.
The tour is open to public too?
No, you've got to have an in. So we had some VIPs in town and some clients who had come in town, and we got some permission to be able to do that. They have a public tour in Fremont, or they did. I don't know if they still do, but there was a 6-month waiting list to be able to get on the tour. People plan their vacations around going to Fremont to go get a tour of the factory. To put that in perspective, and this is sort of like the cult of Musk and what he does, I don't think there's even people that want to do a tour of a GM plant or a Toyota plant or a Honda plant. I don't know there's that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of patronage. And so, yeah, it's not even open. I get requests monthly from people that are flying in and like, I really want to bring, this VIP, this person. And I try not to pull favors more often than I need to, but we've got a few people that can make something happen.
You bought the first Tesla in 2011 or 12?
I actually ordered my first one in 2008 and then pulled my order, or
2012,
2008 or 9. I put the order down on what was called Blue Star at the time.
Yeah.
Blue Star was the name that they had given to the Model S, which is what it was named. I got an email that mistakenly said, I read it as, your $5,000 now needs to be a $40,000 deposit. What they were asking is if you wanted to get a signature series, which was one of the first 1,000, put your $40,000. So I just cursorily read the email and then said, I'm not throwing another $40,000 at a car I haven't even seen. So I pulled my money back and I took my order back. Then I saw the deliveries, the very first ones, the signature ones coming out in 2012. And I'm like, okay, this looks compelling because it kind of had the lines of an Aston Martin. The metrics on it as far as 0 to 60 time at the time, the performance one was 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, which, 12 years ago was pretty fast. Of course, they're twice as fast now as the first ones. And so I ended up configuring one in 12 and got it delivered in 13. And the month I got my Tesla, we got an invite from Tesla to the owners, the handful of owners that were in Austin. Hey, can you come down and help us with direct sales and fighting for that in Texas? And I don't know if you know the story on that, but Tesla cannot directly sell on a car lot to consumers.
Boy.
So there's protectionist laws in place. I'll give you the brief version. Essentially, during the Depression, you had car manufacturers that couldn't afford to build out a system of direct car sales. So they hired or they gave out franchises to franchise dealerships. So those franchise guys were the little guys at the time. Then you went post-World War II, you had the car boom in the 1950s, and all of a sudden they were making money hand over fist, and you had these car manufacturers that said, we'd like to sell directly to the public. And so they wanted to put direct sales of Fords and GMs and all that to the public. And the franchise folks complained, and they put in protectionist laws in the 50s to protect the little guys, which were the franchise dealerships. Well, now you fast forward, and those dealerships they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money on service. Yeah. They make a lot of money on markup, depending on what the market's doing. You never quite feel like you've got direct information on what pricing should be. I don't know if anybody that's left a dealership and went, that was a great experience and I got a great deal. You're always kind of wondering what was left on the table. Like it's very opaque. Not to mention Elon was coming out with a very expensive second car after the Roadster. And to be able to put in a dealer margin in there of another 15 or 20% on an already expensive car. My first one was $120,000 fully loaded and delivered. That was a lot of money.
That time was a lot of money.
Now make that $150,000, right? And that's, that was a lot of money especially for something I'd never driven. I didn't even drive the car before it got delivered. My first time driving the Tesla was when it got delivered in March of 2013. And so, the dealership model was not going to work. And so he successfully lobbied multiple states and had these rules reversed, or was able to bracket it or allow protection for Tesla so that they wouldn't have to go through a dealership model. And then it kind of forced him to do the way they really do it now, which is direct sales online. So if you go in and speak to someone, they just refer you back to the website. You technically order it online from California. Even if it's manufactured here, your processing happens in California. So you're not going to a dealership, you're going to a display room or display area. And you get a bespoke vehicle manufactured for you, and then it gets delivered. So he's found a workaround. What I like about it is it's very straightforward. I've worked with a ton of Tesla employees who've become friends and clients of mine in real estate. And I've asked a few of them years ago. I'm like, okay, now tell me what's going on with employee discounts. How do I get the inside deal? And to a person, they came back to me and said, do you see us driving you see a lot full of employee cars that are Teslas? I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, we don't get any discounts. It is what it is. And so that kind of transparency on pricing, wow. You go online, you make 6 to 8 selections, and your car is delivered in a couple weeks. It's pretty remarkable how it works. And I've got a referral code. I can give somebody $1,000 off with my referral code, and any Tesla owner can. But so it's very, very straightforward. They offer, like right now, they're doing 0% financing on their 3s and Ys that get delivered by the end of the year. So they offer some incentives, and then they roll them out, roll them in, but it's the same deal for everybody. And so I think it's a kind of a refreshing way to buy a car.
That's how you got into the Tesla.
But that's how I started the Tesla Owners Club. So I'll back up to 2013. So I get my Tesla. They send out an email. They said, if you can get there early and give rides to the press, we'd appreciate it. So being an overachiever, I got there at 5 o'clock in the morning. They said, get there by 6. So I'm there early. I'm like waiting, I'm looking for people with cameras. And I'm like, I love this car. I've driven it for a month. I had a 911 Turbo that was my dream car. I loved it. And it just sat in the garage. I ended up selling it later that year because the utility of the Tesla was so great. It didn't handle like a Porsche. They still don't. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
I love Porsches,
different.
but the 0 to 60, the use of being able to stack whatever you want in the back, like a station wagon. I had the rear facing jump seat. So, I mean, it was an everything car. And it really didn't add much to my electric bill, and I drive a ton. So anyway, get invited, give rides to press, super enthusiastic, talking about how much I love the car and the mission and all the rest of it. And then we go and sit in what's supposed to be, an hour or two in the congressional session to try to convince these senators or Congress people actually that they should put this bill out there. And so I happened to sit behind Elon, and it ended up turning into 9 hours when you added up the whole day. But at lunchtime, he turned around, we were getting a break, and he's like, "Hey, I saw you on the news. I want to say thank you. Is there anything I can do for you?" And I'm like, most people would say, "No, thank you. That's great. Keep doing what you're doing." And I'm like, "Sure, it's lunchtime. Can you walk to my car and sign my license plate and my sun visor?" And he's like, "Okay." And so he walked out from the Capitol. He went to my car. He signed my license plate, sun visor. The press was there. I had a 5 minutes chat with him. And so that really drove it home. I was loving the car. I got to meet the guy who just crackles with intelligence, and
that's what I heard.
And became just a huge fanboy. I mean, he's a very intense person, but also very engaging. And he kind of waits for you to pull away, which is really interesting.
Really?
Every time I've spoken to him, I'm the one who's like, "Hey, listen, appreciate it. You do amazing stuff. Go use your time wisely because it's very valuable." And so he's really a very compelling person. Obviously, I think the smartest guy on the planet as far as business acumen, just balls of steel and intelligence. I mean, he's at the head of all of his companies and has a hand all throughout the design process. I don't know how he
handles that, man. It's just...
I don't know that he has a happy life. He has a very productive life. I don't know how, I can't even compare how busy I am. And I'm technically a very busy guy. I still have time off. I still hang out with my family. I still have holidays. And
he doesn't have a very luxury, living. I heard that he's a mega factory. He's got a little place there that is for, that.
He's not afraid to sleep on the factory floor or on a couch or at a friend's place if he's popping into a town. He's all about making best use of time. I mean, a couple of the things I know from people that have been hired by him, he's got a really interesting way of hiring when he was doing all the hiring. And for years, his companies, if you were in a C-suite or a top engineer or design position, and even some of the ones 2 or 3 levels down, you would do an initial or a final interview with him. And essentially it amounted to, tell me about a problem that you solved personally, not something you were part of a group on. If you're coming out of college, it could be a math problem that you solved in the class, or what makes you extraordinary at fixing whatever you did. And then he would go granular on it and probe until he found a break or didn't. So if you could not answer every piece of the solving of that equation or that problem, then that wasn't you that did it, right? And then you're blackballed and you're not doing it. You clearly did something by committee. So if you're hiring the best of the best, how do you get granular with them? Tell me about your most challenging problem. If I'm the expert or I know enough that I can get down and figure that out, if that person's fluffing their resume or if they're actually the genius they propound to be. And so things like that make him. I've worked with a ton of folks with a lot of his companies, and they're all super humble, super intelligent, but not flashy and showy, and obviously whip smart and all, decades younger than I am. I don't think he hires anybody over 30 years old. He likes them young and not 20 or 30 years of bad habits working for Boeing or McDonnell Douglas. A lot of people hire on seniority. He hires on innovation and first principles, right? Like if I'm going to make a cup, forget cups. Forget you ever saw a cup. I want you to think about how to make the best possible cup from first principles. Start from the ground up. What would you need in a cup? Start from the basics. Don't go by past designs. Don't make a modification from something else. And it makes people, forces them to be creative. If you've been in that career for decades, you have a way, quote, that things get done. Throw that out the door. Really hard to do when you've been in an engineering position and you know the protocol and you know how things work. And so it doesn't lend itself to being nimble and making changes. Also, the way that he runs his offices, you have the manufacturing leads and the engineers and the designers that are all sharing office space with no cubicle space, just in open desk areas. And so if something happens on the line from a guy that's bolting a screw in and he's like, we have 3 screws here. You really only need 2 because of the strength of this, I think. They'll have the engineer designer out there and they'll be like, oh, you're right. Remove that one, add another 4 millimeters of depth to this. And we just saved a penny on that screw and another, however time that would take to be able to do it. And so they're able to, something that would be an act of God to be able to change manufacturing in any other process.
I heard a story
he just makes a change.
I heard a story that they said that, everybody wants to have an office. And he said, no, I want to be able, when I walk into the floor, if I have a question, if you can't answer, the other person can answer, or we can collab. I think that's what
100%.
You said, that is an open, he's a big fan of the, like a open door, open space.
And no meetings.
No meeting, yeah.
No meetings. It's why he's walking somewhere or driving somewhere, and you are tagging along. That is your meeting. And then you get out of the car and they take you back where you came from, or, he's in the office, but he rarely stands still. Is what I think
he's going to do great in the new administration based on the Trump?
Man, I'm excited. I will say. I mean, I try to stay apolitical, but when he decided he would join, I feel like between him and a few of the other folks in the cabinet, like it's almost, I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I didn't vote for him the first time around. If you told me I was voting for him, but I feel like in this, not to talk politics, but I feel like it's the closest we're ever going to get, possibly in my lifetime, hopefully not, at an independent. I think I don't like the Republican or the Democratic Party. I think they're both so bought out. And you take someone from either side. You take, Nancy Pelosi. She makes better, decisions than Warren Buffett on investing. Well, they know inside information. You can choose people from the left and the right that they all get in it to get rich and get power. And if that means they're beholden to all the laws that protect the insurance companies or the pharmaceutical companies, and to the neglect of who they're supposed to be representing, they have no problem because they're just lining their pockets. And that's the way both of those parties are. I think both parties were nervous about Trump because he's not beholden really to the Republican Party, and he's got 4 years left, and so he can't get reelected. He doesn't care. He's just trying to get stuff done. And
he runs it like a business.
He runs it like a business. Personally, not a fan of the guy himself. I don't like the way he acts. He's got a laundry list of things I don't like about him. But the fact that his cabinet selection, if he can maintain them, has the possibility to cut some fat where it needs to. I've got stories of government bloat from education department to military spending that I've personally seen, defense contractors, education people, just straight out wasting money. Spending money on things that make absolutely no sense. So there is so much fat in the U.S. government, and I heard something like half of our GDP is just government spending, and that's it. It's ridiculous.
And he's surrounding himself with smart people.
Yeah.
That he's choosing like Elon Musk or Dr. Oz.
The challenge is Elon's got a very strong personality. So does Trump. So I hope that they can play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If he can maintain this cabinet and we can, clean up our food, clean up budgets, actually see if we can actually take the money that we have and spend it wisely. I don't mind paying my taxes, but to see some of the stuff that we spend money on that I personally think is completely wasteful is a shame. And I don't see that either side, is any better than the other side at not just being completely wasteful with the taxpayers' money. You don't have any business people. They're all career politicians. They've never actually grown anything from the ground up. They've never struggled and created a business. They don't know what that person's going through. They don't understand that. But they're making decisions based on what theoretically they have or the interests of whoever's got their pocket. And so, I am definitely optimistic that we can see real change, and then maybe it's a door for an independent. Because if we go back to just Republican or Democrat, that's the only electable sides, you almost have to sneak in as an independent and then decide to make change. And it's a rare person that can do that.
I never understood that, as you just mentioned, in a Republican and Democrats, we don't want to get into politics, but don't we all going toward one goal? Like, if you have a company, just put it this way, you have a company, your goal is to taking care of your people, create a great service, add value, and be, profitable as well. But what is this? I never got it. Like, if we're going to make the country better, let's do it together.
Government saving money. Check. That shouldn't be bipartisan. Taking some of these monopolistic controls away from pharmaceutical companies who.
That's the big one.
I mean, I personally was affected by some of the stuff from pharmaceutical companies, and they really we're just numbers. There's a certain amount of deaths that are allowable, a certain number of things. We're wrapped up in complete protection against them, against the people ever coming after us, right? The insurance companies, I don't know if you deal with insurance. I spend more than I made as a teacher every year on a relatively healthy family just maintaining our health care between premiums and regular doctor visits and a few allergies. It's so expensive. And I have a lot of friends who are doctors. It's not like they're making more money. You don't get mad at the doctors. They have to hire full-time people on staff just to deal with the reimbursements from insurance that pay them pennies. Yeah. Then they send the overage to the consumer. The consumer looks at the bill because they say, well, my insurance paid for it. Well, insurance paid a pittance that barely covers the cost of what the procedure is. And then you've got staffing for the doctor that's got to go get that reimbursable. And then you have to cover the difference. But if that doctor doesn't get paid, if he goes after the client, then that client leaves a bad review. Then he's got problems with the medical board, or he's got bad reviews and nobody wants to go to his doctor's office. So they're in a catch-22 where they just take, numbers that haven't changed in a decade or more on what their allowables are, while everything from the newest technology, their staffing costs, everything's gone up. And so, the advent of AI, robotics, is really necessary. We're losing a ton of doctors that just don't want to come in and replace the ones that are here, a ton of nurses. And so, there was going to be a massive shortage. If we truly are able to bring AI and robotics in and step in for some of that care, I mean, that may be a solution. But you're not having people that used to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Good luck. I mean, some of that stuff, attorneys. I mean, gosh, I recently had to write up a legal doc, and I was going to send it somewhere, and it was just between a couple of business partners, and we both agreed to it. I literally had my assistant put it in ChatGPT, and I got this form that was took 30 seconds. I would have paid $1,000 and waited 2 weeks for revised stuff, and I had a 2-page document that we're both like, yeah, do we agree on this? Yeah. Do we agree we're both not attorneys? Fine. Are you willing to sign this? Perfect. And we had a contract we hammered out in 24 hours. And it was a great contract. And that's really AI at its infancy. There's all kinds of careers that'll just go by the wayside. And so it's going to be an interesting transition.
It's going to be.
I've got a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. I don't even know what to advise them. What should you study now? I don't know.
We can't. But let's shift the gears a little bit. Why did you start the Austin, Tesla Club?
So
you're a big fan of Tesla.
So continuing from that day, I met the most inspiring person. I drove his car for a month, right? As happens with a lot of times, I'm trying to cut back on drinking a bit, but a lot of good things happen when you're drinking with some friends. So there were 3 of us that went out for drinks after that same day at the Capitol in 2013. And we're just sitting around going, man, this guy doesn't have any marketing. That guy's so smart. This car is amazing. Nobody even knows about it. People would come up to me in a grocery store parking lot.
And that was a time nobody
really, they just come out.
Yeah, they just came
and they're
out.
like, is this thing Japanese? Is it European? Is it German? Where's the motor? Like, people had no idea. And there was no marketing really. I mean, you've never seen a Super Bowl ad with Tesla.
No.
They doesn't advertise. It's all what we did, word of mouth. And I think that first year I probably gave 150 rides to total strangers who just came up to me, asked me questions. And I'm like, hey, you got 5 minutes? I got 10 minutes before my next appointment. You want to go around the block? And they're like, sure. I'm like, you want to drive? They're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah, just point it straight because the horizon comes up pretty quick. And I loved, educating people to it. And so I had fun doing that. And then we're like, you know what, we should go to Cars and Coffee and show off the cars because they're so new. And so, back when they were unknown, we would just take over Cars and Coffee and, you have all these cool cars and then you'd have a Tesla, which seems very commonplace now, but wasn't then. And so, we started doing that. We'd rent a dyno and see what our horsepower equivalent was on the cars. We did a party at my house that first July, and I had maybe 50 people over that were everybody that owned a Tesla in town just about. And so I threw that party at my house until COVID. I haven't started again because the last party I had in 2019, I think we had 500 people at my house.
Wow.
I've got an okay sized house and backyard, but we were definitely stretched to our limits. And so, but we've grown it from Cars and Coffee to parties. We throw after parties for the Gigafactory opening, the Cybertruck release after party. And we do for these big parties, we do big productions. So oftentimes we piggyback on kind of exciting events that are getting released, whether it's a shareholder day at Tesla or a release or a factory opening. And we kind of throw the after party or next day have an event for folks that came in town. Because a lot of Elon's get-togethers and parties are very exclusive. You can't get tickets. Ours are open to anybody that wants to come. And so...
Wow.
I think the cyber release, he had maybe 700-800 people there. We had 1,100 people at our after party. We took over 2 buildings, an outdoor bar, an outdoor parking space. We had the chief designer, Franz, come and drive his cyber truck in right after he got it at the factory, and he hung out and was gracious and talked to everybody. I love that guy. He's awesome. And so we throw fun parties. In fact, we're coming up with a holiday party. We're literally on the way here. I was texting the rest of our leadership and like, okay, guys, are we doing toys for tots? And we'll do decorate your Cybertruck and lights and I don't know. So we're coming up with
the club
Christmas
is more educational for people, or is it's a nonprofit? How do you structure it?
It's more fun. It's more fun. So I signed the initial charter, and I've got insurance and all that stuff. But it really is, people don't know this, but it's just on my back. We don't charge dues. I spend probably $10,000 a year running the basics on the club just for websites and administration and organizing parties and holding spaces, and then we do have sponsors that come in and will cover larger costs. Like I think our most expensive party was $120,000. We had 1,600 people at that one. That was the next day we threw a party after the Gigafactory opening. And so you had people come in worldwide who thought they could just sneak into the Gigafactory party. And when they couldn't, they would have flown back to Tokyo or, Melbourne or London disappointed. So I kind of think of us as we're kind of the tea kettle. We let the steam off of the rest of the excitement. So for people that come into town to just be around the excitement of one of these events, they can always come to our parties and we put it out and make it open to everybody.
And Tesla doesn't step in and guys help you out, or
so we are able to use
feedback? So because you're supporting them.
We can use their logo. So we have an official Tesla owners Austin logo using the Tesla symbol, which they're very protective of. We are not making money. So any of our sponsors, we don't keep any cash. I don't have an account for the club. Basically, we have our vendors get paid for by the sponsors. If we end up with any overage, we have certain charities that we donate to. So I've never made a penny on the club and I don't plan to. We simply are doing it for the enthusiasm and enjoyment of it. And so I'm still enjoying it, so I'm still doing it. And we've got I've got my VP Anwar Beck, and then John Cronin, who's doing a great job, redid our entire website, and we're
I know John. Yeah.
You know John, yeah, good guy. So we're really, the underlying factor is fun. Like we try to get together to enjoy it. There's an education piece. We'll do something. We can go in and use the Tesla spaces. So we could go in, and if they roll out a new product, we can go into either a delivery center or one of the showrooms and use their space. And they'll talk about, we've had talks about the solar roof and install. We've had talks about, for new owners on, a little bit more in depth on how to get the most out of your car. We helped out one year on deliveries. I can't remember what it was. I think it was the end of the quarter push for, was it threes or Ys? I think it was threes. And we had more people than we knew what to do with, because they were trying to deliver like a car every 2 minutes. And so we would link them up with an owner from the club, and they would sit in the car for up to an hour or whatever the person needed, just walking through how to set everything to their liking, how autopilot at the time worked, now FSD. So realistically, we're just there to support. And Tesla appreciates it, but we don't get any financial support really of any kind. There's no direct correlation in that aspect. But we just try to do good for the Tesla community. So,
and I believe in a Cybertruck. I'm just debating on it, and some people like it, some people don't like it. Is the look? Is the empty box? I don't know what it is, but I don't think so. It's for everybody.
It's definitely not. So my wife hates the way it looks. I've had 2 now, by the way.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, I had the long range.
Hates it?
She thinks it's the ugliest thing she's ever seen. She doesn't like the design. So my wife is from Spain. I told you I met her in Spain. So I'll tell you the example I gave to her. It didn't quite resonate with her, but I think it's a good example. So I said, remember in Spain there was this guy. What was his name again? Picasso. Do you remember when that guy first started making these ladies with big noses and 2 eyes on one side of the head? People said this guy's drawing like my 5-year-old could make a painting like that. So what has history said? History has said that was a revolution. That was the art world getting turned on its head. And so I liken the Cybertruck to this. If you look at a 1994 Toyota 4Runner and a 2024 Toyota 4Runner, to my wife, if you put them side by side or you drove by in one that was the same color and the next one, she'd be like, oh, it's the same car. Design has gone in the toilet. People change the headlights to make you buy the new model.
Yes,
you get the same exact model with minor changes to make you do. Do they have a revolutionary new look or something amazing it does? No. Now the headlights turn slightly when you turn right. Like, ooh, I got to buy the new model because it's got 2 more lights over here, or I can modify my car so I can keep up with the Joneses. You think about the golden era of cars. You think about the 50s and 60s and early 70s. Every year there was a demarcation line where you could tell the difference between the same model year to year. I mean, I can spot a difference on a 64 Mustang and a 66 and a 67 and a 68 and a 69 and a 70. And so you had these designers taking chances. And then you got to the 70s, which was all about, saving gas, and we lost all of our horsepower and balls and all the rest of it. And then you got to the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and everyone's like, well, the average person just wants an average car. Let's just make an average looking car. I mean, a Camry looks like an Accord, looks like and they're afraid to change it. Well, it's the best selling car. It's not because somebody has a passion about the car. It's because it's fine. It's milquetoast. It serves a purpose. It's utilitarian, but there's no excitement in it other than the supercars. And that's where we had met at that 10 event, right? Which I love. And there's always going to be that enthusiast. But I think the average person wants to feel something as well when they get in their car. And so hopefully what I'm hoping is that this is such a radical departure for design. Love it or hate it, it should be able to tell designers they can be bold in their design. They can make something interesting and innovative and completely change it and make a sexy car and I'm hoping that it allows designers to take more liberties, and manufacturers too. Because why is the 90% of cars out there so boring and haven't changed in 20 years? Really, I mean, in any material way, it's the same design. And so that's what I'm hoping. This is the Picasso revolution in cars.
It's simple, but it's got that sophistication too. I look at it. The inside is very simple, but it's got a lot of different functionality as well.
Oh, the car itself, forget that. My wife, I told you she hates the way it looks. She drove it. She's like, oh my God, this thing drives amazing. I had actually, the week before I got my first Cybertruck, I'd been in Vegas with a friend of mine who's a gambler. I mean, literally to the point where we were being driven around in a Rolls Royce Phantom between hotels we were going to and casinos. And so you drive in a Rolls Royce Phantom. I don't know if you have, but I mean, it drives like you're on glass. You're like, just so smooth. You can have a whisper conversation. It's just like, it's a remarkable car, right? It's also a little pricey. I got my Cybertruck the next week. I put it in comfort mode and I'm like, why does this car feel familiar? And between the long wheelbase, the weight of it, the soundproofing, the electric no sound there, and the shocks when you put it in comfort, it really rode like a Phantom. So you can press a button and raise it 8 inches and go off-roading, which I've done with my cars. I've got the ripped up tires on my second set of tires to prove it.
It does off-roading very well?
It did great. So there's a track called Doma. We did a Cybertruck rally up there. We had 300 people at that party, and that was in Waco. We got 300 people to drive up. We had 55 or 60 Cybertrucks. This was probably 6 months ago. And the owner of the track at Domo had us up there. And so at the time, it's just a dirt track. And then he had like a rock climbing track. And then he had kind of a rally track. And so I took people at speed all around that at speeds I shouldn't have been going. And then I went up the rock climbing, and I didn't realize for the rock climbing section, you're supposed to just ease into the rocks. So other cars are like, and they weren't that big of rocks. I wasn't intimidated. I've got 35-inch wheels. So I was hitting it at full speed and then gunning it up the hill. Well, those rocks were taking massive chunks out of my tires because they're rocks you're supposed to climb over and they have jagged edges. So I actually popped a tire there.
Oh my God.
There was one guy who had a spare tire attached to the back of his Cybertruck. Thank God I didn't pop more than one. And he actually lent it to me. And I went back and got a replacement and gave it back to him. But
the Cybertruck doesn't have a donut.
Cybertruck has no donut. No, I don't think many cars do now. And I actually took that rim. Luckily, my business partner and vice president of the club, Anwar Beck, had just had aftermarket wheels put on his Cybertruck. So he had 4 rims and tires. So I swapped out. I had my rim at Discount Tire for 6 months. It just came back last month. $750 tire and a 6-month backlog because Tesla is taking all those tires for the Cybertrucks right now. So you can't even find replacement tires because they need them because they're delivering. So when I was in the factory, it looks like they're delivering based on the numbers that I believe they're public knowledge. They're delivering a Cybertruck every 3 minutes out of the factory. They're delivering a Model Y every 75 seconds.
No way.
Yeah.
75 seconds?
75 seconds. Every 75 seconds, a Model Y comes off the line. If you haven't been in the factory, it's 11 million square feet. And you'd think, they've only been open a few years. It's probably half empty. It's packed. In fact, I had 2 visits that were back to back, like within 3 weeks of each other. And I came back and the entire ceiling had like this roller coaster thing that was taking the chassis to the paint department. They'd run out of room on the ground level and they'd put in this like roller coaster chassis carrier along the roof, the elevated roof, to take it and wind it through the factory to get it back into paint department from the end of the manufacturing line. It was
how high is
crazy.
The demand?
I mean, I will say the Model Y is one of the most popular cars on the planet. And this quarter, they're offering 0% financing, which for cars and houses, we were talking about houses, it's a payment. It's usually a payment for people that are interested in interest rates. They have to get their payment to a certain number. So it's all about interest rates. And so it's the same thing in houses. If I can get a seller to buy down the rate, I have a much better chance of selling it. Right now, if you're getting a 7 or 8% rate on a car, or you can get 0%, it's a no-brainer. Take the 0%.
Does it depreciate a lot?
So instead of, listen, I hate depreciating assets, and yet I've owned 8 Teslas. I still have 8 on my app. It's ridiculous. I have a bad habit. The problem is it's more like a PC than a car. You know what I mean? Like you get one, people are like, oh, I'll get a 2-year-old one. I'm like, oh man, your MCU is going to be slow. The cameras aren't as HD. Like when you go in FSD, ooh, mine's going to be a little bit better. Like I just want you to think about this. Think about this more as like an iPhone. It's like, oh, I'm just going to get an iPhone. I can get a 6 or a 15. I'll get a 6. What? I mean, you're not going to be able to do half the apps. So it's really like that, where it just gets better and better. They make internal. In fact, I remember when I first got my car, I spoke to somebody. Internally, the year I got my first Tesla in 2013, they were making 20 hardware changes a week on their vehicles. 20. Where each week it was 20 parts were different between the cars that were there the week beforehand, fine tuning that. So they're not afraid. Like I said, that's that whole benefit of having everybody in one area. They're like, hey, this could be done better that way. Great, change it from here going forward. This VIN going forward, there's a different part being added to it. Put it in the parts catalog. And so making those kind of changes, and they do the opposite of what the other companies do, where they change a headlight, everything else is the same, and they call it a new model. This car, revolutionary changes before they even make any exterior notification they're changing. They finally did a freshen up for the 3, and now the Y is getting freshened up in the same look this next year. It's subtle. I don't think most people think it's revolutionary, but he's actually revolutionizing what's going into your car. Every time that a car comes out, they're never satisfied. They're always wanting to improve. And so that's where I think he's just light years ahead of the competition, and he's got margins. And in this case, he had dropped the pricing on the X and S, and so depreciation on that was tough. He should have just offered lower interest rate and offered internal financing. I mean, sitting on billions in cash, offer a rate buy down, same as you're doing in housing right now, and lock in a lower rate. I mean, 0%. I mean,
that's pretty good.
I was going to say I'm not a betting person, but I kind of am. I would suggest, yes, Tesla's seen a pop, but whatever, it's going to happen. But I think when numbers roll out with a number of deliveries in early January, I think people will be impressed at what's being delivered. I just bought another Tesla for my assistant because it was 0% financing on a fully loaded Y. I mean,
what is the base?
Payment? Right. I should know this. I had her order it. I think it's 50 something is the base. And then she got it under her credit. I was a co-signer and it's my company vehicle. So we were able to get the tax credit. Even if I didn't have the tax credit, I would have got it. But it made the effective price something like $43,000 or $44,000.
And fully loaded.
And that was 7-seater, the colors she wanted, the interior colors she wanted, the long range. Yeah, those little Ys, they're not super comfortable, but I actually got myself, my assistant, and my dog between us in the way back. Now there's no storage behind you when that's up, but in a pinch, you have your in-laws come in town, and you got to squeeze some kids in the back, and then it folds totally flat. You can still use it as a camper. You can sleep in the back and put it on camping mode, and put a twin mattress in there and sleep in the back of the car if you want to. So you don't lose any of the flatbed in the back when both rows are down. And you basically have 2 surprise seats in the way back. So, I mean, they've packed a ton into these vehicles. And I think the payment is like $660 a month.
A fully loaded should be
fully loaded, $660 a month with like $1,500 down. Like, why would I ever put cash down when I can get 0% financing?
Toyota is more expensive than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know how it is. Oh, yeah. You're starting at $39.99 and you go into Honda and like, well, this one's got undercoating and, you know, this special pinstriping is another $1,500 and all of a sudden you're at $50,000 for a Honda Accord.
$95,000.
I mean, like, it's a no-brainer. And so I love the utilitarian nature of them. I don't think the design is setting the world on fire. I'm ready for the Roadster. I think the Cybertruck was needed to show that.
What is the Roadster?
You haven't seen the Roadster?
No.
You look it up under 2020 Tesla Roadster. That's when it was supposed to be delivered. I think it was announced in 2017. Let's just say it's the cherry on top, according to Elon. I think we're still a couple years away. But I have one already ordered. I should have just put it in Tesla stock instead of prepaying for it. But
you need
I
a
made
bigger
that
garage
mistake.
in the house.
Well, yeah, I'm getting one of the car condos at the track, the T11s. There may be a few more toys in there. Well, honey, if you're watching this, just kidding. I'm not getting that. But there may be a few toys I can't fit in my garage. So this car is, first of all, lines are beautiful. But there's a SpaceX package that I'm getting that replaces the tiny jump seats in the back with air compression tanks and puts 10 air compression jets. Because at a certain point, it isn't power that you need. You can theoretically build a 10,000 horsepower car. You just never get the wheels to hold, right? You just do donuts all day. And traction, the innate problem with internal combustion to electric is internal combustion is literally a combustion, right? It's a fire, that creates mechanical movement that then goes through that mechanical movement and then gets overridden finally by the electronic traction control. So you're going to have an innate fraction of a second where that tire is slipping. You can't help it because traction control versus the electric cars speak internally at the speed of light. So the tires are communicating with the motor in real time at the speed of electricity. So that's why, I mean, my grandma could drag race my car as fast as I can in a Tesla because you don't get any wheel spin. It just launches and keeps the appropriate amount of power until it catches and then you take off. Well, when you talk about putting, 4 plaid motors in this tiny little sports car or whatever their plan is, the initial issue is how do you not shred the tires with that much power? So the idea is this SpaceX package is going to create this air compression, immediate puff of, wind that will propel you while your wheels and system catch up. And so the new, he didn't give an exact number, but he said closer to 1 second than 2 seconds, 0 to 60 time. So think about that for a second.
That's unheard.
It's going to have to come with a Hans device and, while warning that if you have a, heart issue or, something.
That's even in his face.
It'll rip the aorta out of your chest. I don't know. There's probably going to be a liability thing you got to sign. But I don't even know how many G's that is. But imagine you're sitting at a light. 1, I'm going 60.
Holy.
1, 2, which is what my Plaid does, which is already terrifyingly fast.
That's scary.
You're talking almost twice as fast.
That's
so
scary.
I think the reason that they're delaying it, they've got to get ramp up and get full production going on Cybertruck. They've got to get, and they're getting there, they probably need to double their numbers on the Y deliveries here. They have the robo-taxi that's coming out that's been promised in 26 or 27, which is a different design and different
build. Do you think
build.
anybody's going to use it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to use the first round.
Austin
For downtown Austin for a round, I mean, listen, if you can take the driver pay out of an Uber and just you're not paying anything for a driver and, you could cut your Uber cost in half. Are you going to get in one that has a driver or not? I think after you see 50 friends, 100 friends, 1,000 friends use it, you'll probably get in a robo-taxi.
Yep.
So, yeah. Do I think it's ready right now? No, my full self-driving is beta. It's not 100%. You still have to pay attention. But we are a few years away from that getting released and I think, happening. And then it's just a matter of, is it the right technology choice that he's made? He's chosen all visual, not LiDAR, which the Waymos you see driving right now have LiDAR, which basically, they can look into the ground from space. That's what the LiDAR technology is. It can look through objects. Wow. And so that is one group is saying LiDAR is the best one, but you need a lot of equipment and you need massive processors. Elon basically said, how do we as humans interpret our physical environment? And it's through our eyes. You're sitting in your car with the stereo up, you're still driving, you're still aware, you're still checking your mirrors. Well, now you've got 8 eyes around the camera and a very fast processor that's anticipating things that you can't even
Analyzing.
see. Side impacts, somebody rear-ending you, somebody 5 cars up that you haven't seen that's spinning out because you're not paying attention. And so, he's chosen to go with full visual. Even like I noticed, because my argument was, well, what if I drive through a mud puddle that covers the cameras and there's no steering wheel? I'm in trouble, right? So even the little cameras have washers on them, which I only discovered, and it's already in my Cybertruck. Because I've had I'd have it self-clean one of my cameras. Because I'm like, what is this button for? Yeah. So
I gotta see that.
So yeah, it's crazy. So that robo-taxi's coming. So that robo-taxi basically, is Uber planetary.
No driver.
The robot, the Optimus robot, I think you're going to see in millions of households. And then what are the commercial uses? What are the industrial uses, right? I mean, like that getting ramped up and getting to production. I was at the We Robot event in LA in Burbank at the studios at Warner Brothers, and it served me a beer. And I think it was a human voice that was speaking through a radio, but I didn't care about that. It's the tactile sense where it picks up a cup, pours a beer, hands it back to you, and in a natural way peels its fingers back to hand it off to you precisely and it sees you as you're grabbing it. I mean, no, like it's hanging on, gripping, and I've got to pull it away from its hand or anything. Like the tactile movement, the fluidity of those things is absolutely remarkable. And so, I think that makes Tesla a multi-trillion-dollar company once that comes out. Cars are notoriously very challenging to make money on. Until Tesla came along, you didn't have a successful car company for 90 years. I think Buick was the last one. You have a lot that started, DeLoreans and all these car companies that have come and gone. It's almost impossible to make a profit. If he can make cars moderately profitable, the profit in a robot is off the charts once you mass manufacture.
And the price will decrease eventually.
And the price will decrease. And so that's what he's a master of, is systematizing, taking the pain points out and making that more efficient, owning the supply chain all the way through so that you have a cheaper, better product and you're not reliant on this part from China, this part from here, this part from there. And now all of a sudden you're stuck with your suppliers holding up your ability to produce product.
One day might change my cameramans.
Hey, you know what?
With the robot behind cameras.
I mean, they're pretty close. I don't know if you've seen the deep fakes. We don't even have to be here. They just have to do a sampling of our voice and we could have this interview already done.
Matt, we touch a lot of stuff about Austin, but a lot of people right now, they're going to move to Austin. I have a lot of friends from New York, LA.
Really?
They want to move down here. One of my friends, the CEO of the tech company. Why is good to move to Austin or why is not? What do you think about that? And real estate, that, part of it, and, Tesla has been here. There's a lot of fun things that are happening in Austin. Why people, they have to choose or not choose? I don't know
Well, I'll give you the negatives out the gate. Our summers suck. So, so if you got a house in Colorado or California or anywhere that's 20 degrees cooler
we got ACs.
Here, well, yeah, if you need to be here, stay inside. Try not to be the guy that makes the roof be under the roof, right? But the summers are tough. We don't have a beach, but we got lots of lakes, right? So these are the things that people pull back from. But I think what makes Austin are the people. I mean, to our point, we met at the car thing, connected. You're like, Matt, I gotta hang out with you. I gotta hang out more. And realistically, we have a very pro-business environment.
Yes.
I have got a massive group of really just well-connected, amazing people doing incredible things that I've grown through various things. The Tesla Owners Club, Westlake Dads Club I formed 12 years ago with some friends. I did a walking group. I was walking by myself. I had a heart event about 3 years ago, and I started walking I couldn't run anymore, and a lot of stuff happened. Anyway, so I started walking 5 miles a day. I was bored out of my brain. I'd make a bunch of phone calls, but I'm walking with my dog. So I invited a buddy of mine to walk with me 5 miles. He's like, oh, that's great. I'll do it. I got a bad knee. I can't run anymore. Blah, blah. Well, now we have like 40 guys on that walking group. Oh my God. This morning, I think we only had 7, but these are guys that between 8 and 10 own their time. So it's founders, it's money managers, it's real estate developers, it's startup folks, it's influencers. It's really an interesting group of guys. And, we've been doing it now for 3 years. And it's actually it's an hour and 15 minutes where we're walking at a good clip. We're talking about our wives and our kids and our businesses and our whatever, what we're thinking about investing in. And so it's this really amazing I don't know, community that has been created. And everybody wants to help everybody. Everybody wants everybody else to succeed. And I think in general, that's the ethos we have in Austin. So it's not only pro business, it's, hey, you just got here. Genuinely, how can I help you? That's not an attitude you get in New York or
Absolutely
LA.
not.
Everybody's out for their own little piece of the pie to the exclusion of you. And I think when people come here, there's genuinely a welcoming, like, oh, let me introduce you to my buddy in your same space. That would be two people fighting it out in New York. And here it's like, oh yeah, dude, we did this 250 unit apartment complex. Matt's helping us with the condo conversion. I'm running at a 5.5 cap. Realistically, we're advertising. We're at 95% occupancy. Right now we're sitting around 92, which is still not bad. We're getting $4 a square foot, blah, blah. And this person's just laying out to a total stranger and like, yeah, there's plenty of room. If you need some connections, I've got some good attorneys. I've got this, I've got that. So the ability to get plugged in is huge.
And collaborate.
It's huge for the startup scene. It's huge for the VCs. I moved here and I called us Tech Light, right? So we were back office. It was Apple, but it was like international customer support and, HR jobs, right? And a lot of support jobs. And since then, I'm like, we're going to be tech heavy and it's going to go, the back jobs, then it's going to be headquarters for companies. Then it's going to be the startups that come around that to be able to pull some of that talent away from the big companies. And then it's the VC and the money guys that are chasing the IPOs. And sure enough, that progression is really what's happening. So we have a robust VC scene. Joe Lonsdale, who was partners with Peter Thiel and Palantir, has got a great startup space, 8 VC over off South Congress next to my gym in Soho House. And he's great. I mean, I can go a laundry list and some, there's interesting guys on our walk too. Guys out of New York came out of the financial side, traders, hedge fund guys, a couple of VCs. And so, like I said, everybody's really here to help other people.
And it's hard for some people to understand that.
I'm like, listen, you're coming here from New York. I get some people come in with a little hard edge. And I'm like, hey, listen, you just got to chill and trust that these are good people and just let your guard down for a second. You don't have to offer anything you don't want to. Just listen to these people. This is not anybody trying to sell you on, LA, you're trying to get sold every 5 minutes on bullshit. Exactly. New York, everyone's out to crush everyone else and only them. It's like, it's not a good way to live. And so quality of life is number one. Number two, economic reasons to move here is, yes, now we have the VCs, we've got the IPOs, and we've got the headquarters. And that is going to continue. I think you've kind of got the son of Elon and a few big companies that are here. And I think you're going to keep attracting that. And so it's going to be sort of an inertia where people are going to start being pulled into the gravity of that, right? And so you've got a ton of PayPal mafia. You've got a ton of really well-heeled people who are moving here from Palo Alto. And then you've got kind of the equivalent. So I came from California. I kind of speak that transition. So I have clients from LA or the Bay Area or New York. My daughter was at NYU. I have a ton of friends in the Bay Area and I grew up in Southern California. So I can be like, okay, this is kind of like, this is old Palo Alto. This is Los Gatos. This is downtown San Francisco. This is Oakland. So I can kind of give that reference point and educate people very quickly to where they probably want to be. And most of my, speaking again to Westlake, most of my people who moved from Palo Alto and areas around there are like, oh, Westlake's like Palo Alto, but better because you're 5 minutes to downtown, not a 45-minute black car. I mean, Palo Alto's great, but you got the same 20 restaurants you can go to and your nice house and you've got, Cupertino and you've got stuff that's around that area. But realistically, it's almost an island unto itself. And, you're not really going into the city, even if you wanted to these days. Versus we have a very vibrant, safe, we've got the homeless issue and some things we could clean up, which I think, this mayor is working towards a lot better than the last one. But we've got a very walkable, fun, music-filled, comedy filled. I've gone to the mothership, the Joe Rogan mothership, more times than I could count. I had a standing 2 nights a week at the VIP booth and I would just rotate friends through. And then I saw everybody's routine like 50 times. I'm like, okay, that's good. So, great comedy and really affordability, like whatever people's price point is, like, okay, you want to be closest to downtown in Westlake on the water. That's going to be pricey, right? You are going to come in at a mid-level thing and you're going to be at the Apple campus. They're finishing 3 million square feet up close by here. That's 3 million people. That's 12,000 jobs, right? That's going to be there. Wow. And they've pushed back their completion date to probably next year sometime.
Right.
They already sent out a notification to one of their teams that's working on AI AI? They were in San Diego and they basically said, you move to Austin or you're fired. And they just moved their office from San Diego to Austin already. So I think that movement's moving here. So you've got affordability, and in Austin, you've kind of got these cliffs where it's like, okay, I'm at 1,200 a square foot in Westlake and 12 to 1,500 downtown luxury high rise, and then I go 5 minutes and I'm at 800, and I go another 5 minutes I'm at 600, and I go another 5 minutes I'm at 400, and I go another 5 minutes I'm at, and I've got a deal right now, a tranche of 8 that I've got an investor that's going to close by the end of the year. This is 35 minutes north of here, Georgetown.
Yep.
New construction, 22,000 something square feet of new construction homes, 8 homes averaging 2,750 square feet, $1 plus for rents. And I've negotiated down to $167.50 a square foot for new construction if they'll take the tranche and close out by the end of the year. So once again, it's always looking for those opportunities. I don't even know how you build for that price, but these production builders need to clear their inventory. Their pay structure works that if their presidents don't make their numbers, they don't get their Christmas bonus. So they're willing to make no margin or take a loss to clear their books so that they can continue to build housing. And so it's all knowing the time of the year, where those opportunities are. And so, I work a ton in the luxury space because that's where I live, is on the west side in Westlake. And those are my people. They're my neighbors. They're my friends. But I do everything. So,
but you can guide people that I work remote, 100%. But I want to save money. I want to go to Georgetown or Cedar Park.
Georgetown, $528,000 for that one was a 3,100 square foot house for people that work remote at Google with a neighborhood with a pool. That's a crazy price. And we got $30,000 towards a rate buy down. And you're talking 32 minutes to downtown Austin with no traffic.
No traffic.
But
you work remote.
My number one rule, though, if you're going to enjoy Austin, it's a little far for Austin standards. People that live in other cities, they're like, oh, that's an acceptable range. If you can, I tell people buy as close as you can, because our projections right now are, when we moved here, there were under 1 million people in Austin. Now we have 2.2, 2.3. Projections are by mid-2030s, we're going to be at 4 million or very close to it. So we're going to double again. Our highway system is another detracting. I'm not trying to paint it all as unicorns and rainbows. Yeah. Our highway system is going to be woefully overtaxed. We have no way to do a proper ring road on the west side. We're only going to have half ring roads around the east side, right? Which is also my argument for investing over there. So I'm doing land deals closer to, I've kind of given up around Giga, Texas. It's too expensive, but another 15 minutes out, where the rest of Must Industries is going, there's opportunity. So I do neighborhood developments. We do entitlements. We're JVing on some horizontal and then selling lots. So I'm kind of the rare crossover. People ask me all the time, like, what kind of real estate are you in? And I'm like, yes.
It's more educated.
I'm in each aspect: land development, commercial. I've done condo conversions on high rises, and then a ton of residential. But most people, they're usually playing one sandbox or the other.
Because you can work with investors, I
always think with an investor mindset.
Yeah.
Always. Even if it's somebody just buying their primary residence, I'm like, well, here's the value and why. And here's why this particular subset is going to pop, and here's who's moving there, and here's why you want to be in that area. And so, yeah, I love giving people that advice, and then 2 or 3 years later, they call me like, oh my God, my house has gone up X amount. I can't believe, that's...
real estate is a tough business to be in, but you see a lot of realtors. We do all respect to all the realtors that listen to this, but you got to find the person that can actually educate you through the 100%. Process. It's not just selling or buying, it's giving you the right advice. Yep. And, what you just mentioned about the whole Austin area and what you should do, what you should not do, that's really priceless. How people can find you, Matt? We're going to put that in the comment section.
I keep a phone. I've taken every pain point out of my life. I keep my phone on me all the time. It's been on Do Not Disturb. Last time I took a 20-minute call, I came back to 54 text messages. So I literally give out my personal number. Best way is to text or call me. If you send me an email, I get about 800 a day. I have an assistant and an intern that just watch my emails and keep my transactions moving, because I don't sit at a computer. My best is face-to-face. So I love putting people in my Cybertruck, and in 3 or 4 hours, I can take somebody who's been here 10 years and they're like, oh my God, I learned more in the last 4 hours than I've done living here in 10 years. And so I have people that have come in, they want to get educated. They're going to buy in a few years, or I want to see what the land, where's the good land deals? What's the opportunity? And so I enjoy sitting with people. And to your point, I always say, and it's true, I don't work in sales. I've never sold anything in my life.
I love that.
I provide enthusiastic education. It's only enthusiastic because I believe in the product so much and it's played out. I look at my personal real estate portfolio. I've done exceptionally well and in the career that I've had here. Forget my actual commission part of it. I look at that as my waiting tables job. Yeah, I can make table scraps. It's actually an example I give to my agents. I'm like, so we're on the NBA court, right? We're standing next to LeBron. He's making $100 million a year. We're the referee making $150,000 a year, right? You want to figure out how to hang out with LeBron and learn some strategies from those big investors. You might want to take your commission and say, hey, can I leverage in for a couple points on this deal? Learn those strategies. You'd be amazed when you ask that question, how many people are like, yeah, I really enjoyed the way you operate, the way you process things. It'd be fun. Why don't we stay in the deal? And then all of a sudden you're growing and you can get to that point. And then who pays LeBron? The owner's box. Yep. Who's that? That's the Elons of the world. That's the people that are changing the planet, that are bringing us robots, right? So you need to really make yourself more fluid than you think you are, and don't just work in the lower end threshold making the table scraps. Like, get inspired, ask questions, and don't be afraid to say, hey, can you teach me about what you're doing? Once again, going back to people. I mean, I get involved in things I have no idea about, and all of a sudden in a couple of years I'm an expert. Just because I've been invited to play with people that are a lot smarter and better connected currently than me. And then we all have more fun together doing these projects. And so
the moment that I saw you actually in that, event and I told my producer, say, I got to get Matt in on the show. You are a few people, swear to God, I have met and interviewed so many people that you do things for connecting with people and helping them. Yeah. Actually, you are a connector.
That's exactly.
You are a connector. You are a people person, genuinely connecting and educating people.
Yeah.
Why you do that? A lot of people don't do that.
Or they try to monetize it. Like, I'll connect you, but I better get a kickback
exactly.
on that.
They're going to monetize it. Or, but you are very giving with no expectation, a hearted guy. And with this, all the shit is going on right now, everybody, they want to get something. Why you do that?
Yeah.
Really, why?
Well, the more you give, and the more I'll work for free for somebody to learn a new skill. Can I help you? I'm pretty good at strategizing. Let me throw an extra brain at that problem. I'm not asking for, hey, I'll do that, but whatever. And I've watched out of conversations and people I put together, new companies form, people branch partnerships, other stuff happen. And it's fun. I enjoy seeing that kind of synergy and those people actually getting together and creating something. And to your point, I'm a connector. Like I said, my Westlake Dads Club, my walking group, the Tesla Owners Club. I like getting people together and having fun. And the only thing is you got to be kind. You've got to be interesting and intelligent and hardworking and a good person. And it doesn't matter what your background is. And so, like tomorrow morning, I'm actually going to a friend's fight club. I know a guy who's an ex-MMA guy, Justin Wren. He runs, he's been on Rogan's podcast a bunch. He runs Fight for the Forgotten. He basically got a calling to go to Africa and help the pygmy people there. So I helped him fundraise this last tranche. He was able to release a total of $8 million in donations from massive folks. If he could raise like $250,000 in a relatively short period of time, he was unlocking these little kind of dominoes. And so literally today, I got a buddy who just got off a plane who gave the last tranche to get him over to get to the $8 million. I was just stoked for him. Like, he's like, man, wow. Me and my girlfriend were crying. We're so excited. So he's an ex-MMA guy. And he's like, hey, man, you should come down. We got this small old man fight club. You should come down tomorrow. I've never fought in my life. I've been in one fight. I don't even know how I got in the middle of it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not my thing. I'm not a fighter. Never put on boxing gloves. I'm going to an MMA training, old man training. I'm like, I will try, but I'm going to tell you guys, I don't know what I'm doing, So, but once again, it's connecting with
you
awesome
never know.
people. Well, it'll be something fun. Like something else I can learn.
Things happen when you ask people or you learn from people.
Yeah. 100%.
It's always happening.
But just people I like being around people that are curious. That's why I think you and I connect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I want to know more about what you do, like, this is interesting. And so, yeah, it's fun. Once again, the number one rule I would say is just fun. I'm trying to have fun with more people and do really fun, interesting things together if it works out. And I'd rather have something that goes okay with a group of people I trust and I like than something that is a battle with these people that don't even like each other and goes sour. Even if you're successful, it's not something you want to get involved in. And so that is one of the things that I think working in my business, I'm good at reading people. And so you can read somebody and in 5 minutes go, okay, I like the way this person thinks and acts, and I get a read on them. Or are they immediately going into negativity? Are they immediately having some measuring contest? Is this like looking down your nose? Is this, it's like, I don't care who you are. It's not the way Austin is.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, chill out, or you can't be part of this.
I have seen the high-level CEOs with flip-flop and walking around with a jean, man.
My
millionaires.
My wealthiest client right now, I've never seen out of shorts and flip-flops. And he is by far the wealthiest person I know. And I've literally never even seen him. I mean, it's in Austin, even in the winter. I mean, he's going around today. I'm wearing a friggin' sweater. I guarantee if I called him, I'm like, hey man, what are you doing? He's like, oh, come over, we'll grab a cigar or whatever, and he'll be in flip-flops and shorts. So yeah, that's the thing. In Austin, you don't discount people by the way they dress. This is atypical for me. I'm usually black t-shirt because I spilled taco sauce all over my thing. I'm running, eating, driving here.
And the next thing, we got good tacos.
Taco sauce and tacos are good. Yeah, that's another plus. Tacos and jeans and some boots because I end up walking, dirt and looking at ranches. You never know where the day's going to take
But really,
you.
I thank you so much, Matt, for being here. I really appreciate it. It was fun. I know you're busy, tied to schedule, but that meant a lot, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
To many years of the friendship and do something great
for
each other, for the people.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.